I'm John Cole. We're probably all fascinated to some degree by success in America and what that means, but what would it be like to actually do success for a living? There is somebody like that, and she works right here in Montgomery County. Her name is Professor Rebecca Razavi, and Rebecca is the head of the Montgomery College Hillman Entrepreneurs Program at the Germantown campus. Rebecca works with the Bill Gateses and the Elon Musks of tomorrow every single day, and we're very lucky to have her as a guest. Rebecca Razavi, thank you so much for being on Meet the Leaders.
Thank you, John.
Now let's start with the basics, Rebecca. Tell me a little about what your job actually is. What do you do?
So I direct a entrepreneur program for community college students. These are students who come from all different disciplines, which is one of the wonderful things about it. And my job is to help form them and give them the skills that they need to be successful academically, but also to help them realize whatever their entrepreneurial dreams are when they graduate.
Fantastic. And the program you run there are a couple of campuses on Montgomery College, but
Yes.
on your campus, the program you run is the Hillman Entrepreneurs Program.
Exactly.
What is that, please?
So the Hillman Entrepreneurs Program is a program. It's funded by David and Suzanne Hillman, who are local entrepreneurs. They are very successful in the real estate business in the county and have been in the county since the beginning of their careers. They had decided that what they really wanted to do was give back to, not just give back to the community, but to help raise up the next generation of leaders in Maryland. So to do that, they have provided Montgomery College, Prince George's Community College, and the University of Maryland with funds to support the students with scholarships and entrepreneurial training. And so I direct the program at Montgomery College with that
Outstanding.
support. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. This is a fairly hard program to get into. Am I right about that?
It is and it isn't. It's not an honors program.
Okay.
So it's not that you need to be a superstar academically.
But it's competitive, am I right?
It's competitive, and it's competitive because we're looking for students who are going to be able to be successful, and also we're looking for students who have team spirit, have great social skills, and have drive. So in that way, yes, it is competitive. So we handpick the students who are in the program.
So it's more Tisch School of the Arts than aeronautical engineering degree at MIT, which you get into with huge academic results. Tisch School of the Arts, they don't care. They're looking for talent.
We're looking for talent.
That sounds like that's what you're doing too.
Yes, it is. It is. We do have engineering students. We do have business students. We have communications. We have psychology. We have students who, they are obviously studying something else. But the idea that they can come together and work together and form a network and form actually their future network because they learn to do projects together is really a big part of the program.
So there's nothing ordinary about these young people. These are some pretty remarkable young people you work with.
Yes, and you've met a good number of them.
And I've met some of them as well. I have indeed. So how do you prepare for a career like that? Let's go back a little bit. Let's start with where you were born.
Okay, so at the beginning, I was actually born. My dad was in drama school at Yale Drama School.
Good Lord.
In New Haven, Connecticut. I was born when they lived in a student housing in a Quonset hut. So I started out in a Quonset hut, but quickly moved when I was 3 to Bel Air, Maryland, which is a very small town north of Baltimore in Maryland, where my dad had grown up. So when I walked down the street, people knew us. They knew my dad's name. They knew my grandfather was the doctor of the town. So it was a very nurturing, great place to grow up, where kind of like everybody knew your name. It was that kind of place. My parents were both community college teachers. My mom and my dad taught English, but my dad was also ran the theater, and he was an artist in his own right. So that's kind of that. Those are my roots.
I begin to see some themes here already, Rebecca.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, you could have chosen any academic field you wanted, pretty much, obviously. So, a double-headed question: what field did you choose, and how did that lead you into what you do now, which is a very unusual job?
It's a very unusual job, and it's also not straightforward.
Right.
And that's something that I think that really people, especially young people, really need to understand, is that just because you're doing something today doesn't mean that you're going to do it for the rest of your life. So I started out I went from pottery to poetry is how I explain it to people. I was a pottery enthusiast in high school. Through pots, decided that's what I wanted to do.
All right.
So I was an art major who was really good at pottery, throwing pots, but not so good at drawing and painting, those other things, and needed a change. So I discovered that, oh my God, I can get a degree in reading and writing, the other things that I really loved. So I studied English, was a technical writer for the National Institutes of Health and the National, Institute for Drug Abuse.
No, oh, yes.
Right,
Okay.
NIDA. And worked with them and with their sister agencies for about 20 years doing scientific writing.
As a writer?
As a writer.
Right.
Right. So I did public things for the public, things for the scientific community. And then, because we've got to follow our passions and whatever they lead us to, I also was a huge enthusiast of Bob Dylan. Just goes to show, you're not clear yet how I got to be where I am, but there is a definite line. Was part of a chat forum online for Bob Dylan fans.
Okay.
I met a friend who was a teacher.
All right.
He had a medical emergency, and his wife called and said, John can't finish his classes. And I said, I'll be happy to take over. So I took over his English comp classes.
And by this stage, do you have your doctorate yet?
I do not. No, I have a master's in creative writing.
You have a master's in creative writing. Okay, please go on.
Right, which allowed me to teach at the community college. Right. That was my end.
Right.
Did that. Worked in a program for students who had dropped out of school.
Okay.
And were coming back. Was the faculty advisor for the paper. Took opportunities wherever they came. Anything that looked interesting to me was a great opportunity, and that's one of the things that I think also has allowed me to be where I am today. So one of those things was the Hillman Entrepreneur Program.
Okay.
I met the director at that time. She and I hit it off. I have enthusiasm for students. I, by this time, had some skill in the classroom and some great ideas, and I think my creativity, kind of.
So it's the Socratic method for looking for a career, isn't it? What you did.
Yeah.
You didn't start with a prejudice. It's this or it's nothing.
No.
This is what I'm going to do. You went in with a set of interests, talents, and skills and training. If I'm hearing you correctly, looked at a wide variety of things, and it's almost like trying everything in the fridge until you find something that really hits the spot.
Yes.
Is that what you did?
Yeah, I didn't try everything in the fridge, but I tried anything that looked good.
Right.
there were things
Not so
I
much
would
with
not
the
have
broccoli.
been interested in doing, and I made sure I did. If I could, I avoided those things. Yeah. So there's some efficiency to it, but in other words, yeah, I had no idea. If my family says, "How did you get where you are today?" I said, "That's just I took the things that looked interesting to me and I went for them, and I did them as well as I could." So when I became the director of the entrepreneur program, I immediately started on my MBA classes so that I would have the best possible qualifications to do my job as well as I could.
And did you know that was your passion when it happened, or did it come by degrees?
I knew that my passion was at that point working with students.
Okay.
And working with students in a creative way, in a way that I had flexibility to do it the way I wanted to do it, and according to what I thought they needed. So the term entrepreneur had never crossed my mind at that point. I had been an entrepreneur in terms of being able to take opportunities, to work with other people. I was my own boss as a writer. I was a contract writer for a long time, so I knew something about the business.
So the problem with self-employment is the bosses are really hard taskmaster, aren't they?
Well, I was the boss of myself.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I was a hard taskmaster for myself.
Exactly.
Yes, I stayed up late at night, did a really great
Precisely.
job. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah. So it was a kind of an organic process.
So what is an entrepreneur? Let me couch that question a little bit.
Sure.
Am I an entrepreneur if I buy a Chick-fil-A franchise? Is that an entrepreneur? And if not, then what exactly is an entrepreneur to you?
So yes and no. In fact, Chick-fil-A is a really interesting example because I think Chick-fil-A is one of those where you can be a franchisor, but you can also learn the ropes and have some autonomy in how you run your own business.
Yes.
So as long as you have that autonomy and you're able to take ownership of what you're doing, in that case, I would say yes, that's an entrepreneurial path. It's not the only one. No. And some people think of an entrepreneur as somebody who's has a startup business of their own. What I have learned is that you can be an entrepreneur and work for somebody else. You don't have to be the boss as long as you, in your realm, have autonomy again to be your...
Now, I think people will be fascinated by that. So tell us a little bit more about that.
About...
That you can be an entrepreneur and yet not be the boss, the owner, the person who takes orders from no one, the ultimate Uber, Elon Musk type, everybody bows down before you kind of person. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, as an example, I think I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
But I work for Montgomery College.
Yes.
I get my paycheck from them.
Right.
There are, some rules I have to follow. In fact, it's kind of a nice place to be as an entrepreneur because someone else is taking care of the administrative back office part of the work.
Absolutely.
And we, like I said, we take on engineers, very often engineers who may go on to work for, NIST or another DoD contractor, but because they would be hired because they're creative people and they're problem solvers, they're team players, they're bringing their entrepreneurial spirit to a project.
So it's independence, it's autonomy, and the ability to run your own show to some degree.
Yes.
Are those really the things that would make you feel like an entrepreneur, in your opinion, if you were one?
Let me see. Say those again. There's
Independence.
Independence.
Well, autonomy.
Autonomy
and the ability to choose what projects you work on, running your own show.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. There we
Just
go.
asking, there's people out there thinking, am I an entrepreneur or not?
Right.
If I work for the Postal Service, but I'm also running a mail order business at home, am I an entrepreneur? If I own a Chick-fil-A, am I an entrepreneur? If I'm Elon Musk, am I?
Sure. And you could work for the post office and be an entrepreneur in your business if what you do is figure out a better way to serve the customer who comes in the door.
Autonomy, innovation.
Right.
So the ability to come up with new ideas and enough permission, enough freedom to follow, if not all of them, most of them through.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And somebody who looks for opportunities to do that.
Right. And even the most powerful entrepreneur has to follow rules. I mean, Elon Musk can't wake up one morning and say, hey, let's not pay tax this year. He's got his own rules also.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things in our program we teach them, here are the legal requirements for an entrepreneur. These are the things that you need to know. You need to know how to set up your business so it's legal. You need to, you need to know how to work with other people.
Right.
And other systems. So that definitely is a big piece of,
Rebecca, I know you love all your children, and there are no ugly children, but I'm going to ask you to pick one just because we can't talk about all 20 of them in the time we have. Do you have a favourite entrepreneur story you'd like to share with us?
Oh, goodness. Well, can I flip it?
You
that's
can.
what I do, right? I flip things. That's something else that entrepreneurs are able to do. They are able to take, this is what you're asking, and I'm going to flip it on you. So rather than one of my many, many children,
yes,
I'll talk about my dad.
Please.
That's okay.
Please do. Of course it's okay.
And again, another example of someone who I think is an entrepreneur, but he did work for other people. He worked for the college in our hometown. He was a teacher, and so he had to do, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But he was an artist.
So, Rebecca, we've been talking about entrepreneurs. It's natural enough for me to wonder, with all the entrepreneurs you've worked with, both the inside and outside the Hillman program, is there one story of an entrepreneur that's particularly resonant for you?
Oh, gosh. I have met a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's been one of the joys of doing my job right now. So I don't slight any of those. I'm going to tell you a story about, I'm going to flip it. Right, I'm going to be disruptive with your question, and talk to you for just a minute about my father.
Sure.
Who, by some people's definition, would not be considered an entrepreneur. He was a teacher in a college, right, and that's what he did, and he followed the rules. But both within his career as a teacher and also in his life, he was able to to live a really full life that really kind of on his own terms.
Right.
That's what it was. And so he was an artist. He was a painter. My house is full of his beautiful, beautiful paintings because he couldn't stop till he had so many. His house was filled, and we had art shows and things. But there was just more than that he was determined to do that way. within his job at the college, he also took on the theater. He built the theater out of an old barn.
Good grief.
Had never done opera. He was actually a director of the opera theater, turned that into a repertoire theater. So he was able to build his own life, right, and his own legacy.
I'll say, yeah.
So to me, I took a lot of inspiration from the way that he lived his life, and a lot of freedom and permission. So we all know people like this, right? And so I think that if we can kind of hang our hats on, if they could do it that way, then I can do it my way. So I'd say that he was really kind of my favorite entrepreneur.
And that's somebody who had idiosyncratic talents and used them with a great deal of focus and determination. Let me turn it around just for a moment and ask you if in your long experience of, I don't know how many hundreds of entrepreneurs, but a lot.
Right.
Are there in fact though any common elements? Are there some things that characterize people who are successful as entrepreneurs?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I think there are a couple things that you just really need to develop if you don't have them already. And this is if you're going to be an entrepreneur or successful in any particular way. It's really important that you, if you say you're going to do something, that you actually follow through on it. Particularly if other people are depending on you to do this. Your reputation is going to really, really matter. If people don't trust that you're going to do what you said you're going to do, they're not going to want to support you when that time comes. At the same time, I think it's really important for you to take opportunities when they come to you. And so the students that I have, the people who have come to meet with our students and work with our students who are successful entrepreneurs, they all have that kind of spark, that ability to just, not stick with the program. And to do things, to think about, if this is the way that it's always done, how can I flip this and do it a different way? And how can I make it my own? And what do I need to do to make this my own? So that I think that that's really important. Like I said, we choose students who have that kind of spark when they walk in the door. We almost inevitably know immediately.
How do you know?
That's a good question. I think part of it is confidence.
Okay.
So if someone has and determination, which I think are hand in hand, like I just have to do this, and that's pretty apparent when you first meet somebody. This kind of ability to sort of, and when someone walks in the door, you can tell if they are like in their own shoes, or if they're just sort of shuffling around, not kind of trying to follow and trying to make other people happy and doing this kind of thing. It's like a dance, and you can just tell when somebody's on mark and when somebody's not. I don't know, that's pretty abstract.
On the contrary, it reminds me of a previous guest on this show.
Oh, okay.
A fellow named Professor Ron Stevens, who's an expert on the neurodynamics of teams.
Okay.
And he talks about a thing called team rhythm.
Right.
And it's the old joke, you know when you see it, you know when you don't, even if you can't define it.
Sure.
You're saying there's something similar for individuals, for entrepreneurs. There's a rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a presence, right? You live in the present moment. So, you might have plans for that. You need to plan.
Right.
But if you can live fully in the present moment, you can get as much out of the present moment as possible. And I think that that's really critical if you're going to really be successful and do something great with your life.
So it's about embracing the present too. It's good to have dreams, but there are a great many people with completely unfulfilled dreams.
Sure.
That's not an entrepreneur.
Right. No. Because you'll miss the opportunities when they come.
Yeah, my word.
Because you've got your mind set on something else. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my word.
Yeah.
So on that subject, and this is a question I like to ask on the show. People who watch the show will know this.
Okay.
I want to spare a thought for a moment for the person who's mid-career.
Okay.
They're not 19 years old, like as some of your students are. They may be 35, they could be 45. They're in a job they don't particularly see too much of a future in. Maybe they've never worked for anybody but an organisation within a system in their whole lives. And suddenly they have a great passion. I want to be my own boss. I want to be entrepreneurial. I have an idea.
Right.
What advice do you give to that person?
Can I flip that one on its head too?
Of course.
Okay. So what I find...
Like I could stop you.
That's right. Yes, I'm going to answer your question, a different question. So this is based on the people that I know, the people that I've met. In addition to my own experience, and people who are in my family even, but also just the entrepreneurs who've come through my way. it doesn't seem to be mid-career that suddenly, I don't see that people suddenly kind of get a bug. They've either had the bug the whole time, which is one thing, and so suddenly there's an opportunity to follow through on that. Sometimes that opportunity is the rest of your, whatever you've been doing to this point has fallen apart. For me, I had a contract that I had had for 10 years. The contract fell apart. Suddenly, opportunity was like really important, and I was able to grab onto it. And that's not just my experience, but I find that a lot of people have, they hit a dead end where they are, and it's necessity that I've just got to do something different. If you've got the dream, then you're really fortunate because you kind of know where you're going to go with that. So that's kind of what I see in terms of, sort of the mid-career, how do you make that shift? The question is kind of how do you get the gumption, right?
Yeah.
And again, from the experience that I've had, if the opportunity is there, you'll do it if it really matters to you. I had a poetry teacher when I was in college, and I was distraught because there was a period in my life when I wasn't writing poetry. And she said, don't worry about it. Only do it if you have to do it. If you have to do it, you'll do it.
Right.
And I think that that's true for a lot of people as well. So mid-career, things are not going well, like you said, you're disgruntled. If you have to do it, do it. And if you don't, then get a job doing something else that you enjoy.
Right.
So it's not for everybody, but if it is for you, you will do it.
But what might propel you to take that risk and be successful is that sense of, not I want to, but I have to.
I have to.
If I don't do this, I'll go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
How interesting. Well, we're getting near the end, and I've just got a couple of questions that I hope will give us some insight into who it is who leads all these young people.
Okay.
What are some things you really love to see in a workplace that put spring in your step and make you feel happy?
Oh my gosh. Plug into Montgomery College. I think it's a fantastic place to work for the reasons that I'm going to tell you about.
Okay.
And it's the same, it allows you to be an entrepreneur within an organization. So if you can empower the people who work for you to do something that they can own and, be creative with, then I think that that's wonderful. If possible, if you can have multiple generations, I think that that's really important. So you're not all like over the certain age, but you've got you've got generations, so you get an idea of how to connect with the future. Really is really critical. Sure. Does that answer your question, or
It certainly does.
Okay.
What do you love to hear from a young student as they walk past you in the corridor? What sorts of things might they say to you that really make you think this person is in the right place?
When they're excited about something that they've just done, that's just wonderful. And it could be they've just met somebody. It could be that they've just taken a chance and gone in for an interview or gone to a networking event. They've never done that before. They're doing something they've never done before, and they're excited about it. That's really awesome.
So let me wrap up on this one. Let's suppose that you are a person. They might be young, they might be a little older. It's all relative anyway.
Sure.
But they do have the passion. They've come to the realization that if they don't do it, whatever it is, they will go crazy. So they're going to take that risk. They're going to make it okay with their partner if they have a partner.
Sure.
They're going to do all the necessary planning and all the rest of it. And we're assuming they're entrepreneurial, so they will have read the books and done the work, because if they didn't, then they aren't. We'll take that all for granted.
Yeah.
If you could give them one piece of advice before they walk into that corner office and say, boss, it's been lovely working here, but next Thursday is going to be my last day. If you could give them one piece of advice just before they take that irrevocable step, Rebecca Razavi, what would it be? Have 3 months of savings. You can't just do it. You do need to be prepared, because you need to do that. So that would be it. Now let's assume that they've already done that, right? They've planned it so that they've got that. And then it comes back to opportunity. Just keep your eyes open, stay in the present, so that, and have fun. Because if you're going to leave a job that's secure, there's got to be something that makes you, happy on the other end of it. So yeah, just have as much fun as you can while you're on that roller coaster. And what a lovely note to finish on.
Okay,
Professor
good,
Rebecca Razavi, thank you so much for being on Meet the Leaders.
Thank you, John. This was a great pleasure. Thanks.